As part of our drive to look into the state of our metros today, we're focusing on the city of Tshwane. Mayor Randall Williams joins us to take a closer look at the state of Tshwane. And to be a part of the conversation, you can tag us tonight at Newzroom 405. WhatsApp your questions and your comments to 0721105584. Mayor, good evening and thank you for your time.
Good evening to you.
Let's start a little bit on how you're coming in following your win at the Supreme Court of Appeal, overturning that provincial decision to put the city under administration. I mean, if you look at it, the report of the Auditor General comes out looking at the year 2018-2019, and that particular report says that in the city, except for at least two, all the other, in fact in the province, except for at least two, all the other municipalities are actually not performing the way that they are supposed to be performing, including Tshwane. That's how you're coming in. Of course, that situation has now been exacerbated by the fact that there's been COVID-19 and there's been an administrator in place. How bad is the situation that you're looking at right now?
Thank you very much for that question. Actually, for the three financial years up till 2019, we received three unqualified audits as far as the city is concerned. But coming back now, after we've been placed under administration, we've been in office for 5 months. And, you know, during the time that we were placed under administration, the audit results came out for the 2019-2020 financial year, 30th of June last year, for which the administrators were in control for 3 months. And when we were placed under administration in March of last year, we still had a surplus budget left of about 280 million rands. But somehow within 3 months, that was changed into a deficit of over 4 billion rands. But that is not the main issue. For this financial year, you know, we've been placed under, how can I say, under various levels of lockdown. And because of that, a lot of people lost their jobs because of the pandemic. And obviously, when people are in an environment where they lose their jobs, it means they're going to have difficulty in paying their municipal bills. So what actually happened, unfortunately, the administrators overestimated. They were very optimistic that we will have a 90% revenue collection, and that's what they based the current financial year's budget on, from 1st of July last year until 30th of June this year. Unfortunately, things didn't work out that way. We only managed in July, the first month, to collect 78%, and the other months were not much better.
Yeah.
So by the middle of this year, we ended up with a shortfall on the budget of 2 billion rands. And that's why we had to then pass an adjustments budget to bring our expenditure in line with our revenue collection. So we had to cut drastically down on our budget. But one thing I did say, I will not cut down on core basic service delivery. So that is my priority since I took office on the 1st of November. I've been concentrating on the delivery of basic services.
Okay, let's take it back a little bit then. You're saying there's a deficit of 4.4 billion rands, which money was spent during the 3 months when the city was under the administrator. Are you saying that money was misspent?
No, what I'm saying is you're supposed to have a balanced budget. You're not allowed to have what is known as an unfunded budget. So we were well on the trajectory in the 2019-2020 year to end up with a funded budget, which means your expenses should equal your revenue. But unfortunately, with the 3 months, somehow that did not happen. The administrators ended up with an unfunded budget of 4 billion rands. There were various factors involved with that, but I believe they were put in place to run the city better. That did not happen. The city was far worse off by them running the city. And the same thing happened with this financial year. We were sitting with an unfunded budget by the end of December to the tune of 2 billion rands.
Yeah.
And that we had to change.
So the administrator says, despite this feeling that you might have around the budget that was used during that time, he says it was necessary because, for example, they had to spend on the Hammanskraal water project, which was a crisis. It went to the courts. Even the court said the water that the people of Hammanskraal were consuming was not water that humans should be consuming. And so they had to do something about that. Not only that, there was a situation of COVID-19, and that needed emergency funding as well. Have you had a chance to scrutinize that spending to say, indeed, that's where the money went?
That was quite interesting. Look, Hammanskraal is a very serious issue. And that when we did our handover report with the administrators and with MEC Mahile, I specifically asked that question. Apart from the phase 1 project that the DA government, before we were placed under administration, put in place. Now that phase cost 260 million rands to put that phase in place, to start rehabilitating the Hammanskraal water crisis. And it starts with the Themba wastewater treatment plant. So that's where we started the phase 1 project. I asked them, what other projects have you put in place to resolve the Hammanskraal crisis? The answer was no projects were put in place on their side. So the only project that's been put in place was the one that was put in place by the DA government before we were placed under administration.
So what you're saying is that the money that was spent on a project that was already tabled by the DA?
Yes, the 260 million rand project. So no new project was put in place. And as far as the COVID-19 spending was concerned, the permission was given to the municipalities by National Treasury to use grant funding that was supposed to use for other projects, to use that to purchase PPE and other assets that were needed for the COVID-19 pandemic. And some of the spending is now currently under investigation by the Auditor General.
So what is the project then that was launched or even announced by the MEC that would cost, at least when it's complete, about 2 billion rands, and the infrastructure build project had already begun on that, and that had to do with the water situation?
That is the estimate that we got if we want to completely rehabilitate the system so that Hammanskraal can have clean water. The total cost of the project would be over 2 billion. So it has been broken up into phases, and the only phase that is currently funded is the 260 million rand phase to refurbish the Themba water treatment plant.
All right, Mayor, let's then take it a little bit further then. Let's talk about what transpired during the time when the DA was there. Initially, you were part of Mayor Msimang's mayoral committee. When Mayor Mkhalapa came in, you were left out. So you know pretty much a large part of what was happening during that previous administration. But, for example, there are issues that arise from the Auditor General's report, which says 2 out of 11 municipalities are considered to be functional in the province, and Tshwane not being one of them. The one issue is around the shortage of senior managers in the city of Tshwane. What are you doing to deal with that?
Look, it wasn't a shortage. It was the amount of people that we found acting when we entered office in 2016. We used to call them the actors, that it looked like Hollywood when we entered the city. In the majority of the senior posts, we found a number of employees were acting. So what we did, we then look at the system that was in place, the fact that people were appointed for 5 years only, and after their contracts expired, they left and they were not re-employed by the city. So we decided to follow a different approach. So many of the positions, especially the senior management positions, we then made permanent. The heads of department and also divisional heads were then offered permanent positions. So that's how we were tackling that particular issue, to move away from Hollywood.
But not only that, though, you were also faced with a number of suspensions, people who were suspended still on pay, but also a number of investigations. For example, there were 16 reports of financial misconduct that were being processed by the municipality's disciplinary board at the time, which in itself also meant that there were people who were suspended. What has happened to those cases and those investigations?
Well, I was not responsible for that, but I can give you an answer. I definitely will give you an answer. I was the MMC for Economic Development, so I was not involved when it came to disciplinary matters. That resided with the city manager. But what I can tell you now, labor relations used to fall under the legal department. And I then started to open a can, and then I found it was a can full of worms. Because I moved labor relations from the legal department to the human resources department. And then I found that, in fact, we've got a lot of cases dating back to 2011. We found that most of the cases sat with 5 law firms that consisted of one attorney only. Like one attorney would be sitting with 60 cases that have been unresolved for many years. So what I've done now, apart from moving labor relations away from legal, because that's where all the cases got blocked, putting it in HR, we've signed memorandums of understanding with the CCMA. So the CCMA will now be providing us with chairpersons for disciplinary hearings and also employer reps. In parallel with that, everybody from the level of deputy director up to acting or rather deputy city manager level will be trained in disciplinary hearings.
Yeah. What does that mean?
So
that means the municipal disciplinary board no longer exists?
Yes, but that's only for certain matters. That's for financial misconduct. Only to do with financial misconduct. Nothing else.
And so then you're saying now there are about 60 cases, well, at least the one that you're citing, one law firm with 60 cases.
One attorney.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to get to. What is the level of litigation that you're currently involved in, and what is the full number of suspensions that you're dealing with?
Look, suspensions, I'm not certain of the exact number. Like I said, this is an issue that rests with the accounting officer, who's the city manager. She's got the sole right to institute disciplinary actions against employees. I'm not certain how many are on suspension now, but like I said, the cases that we have date back to 2011.
Yeah. Does that have anything to do with a vacancy rate of 26% that you're currently dealing with in the municipality?
No, that's not correct. The vacancy rate is due to the fact that the city does not have the money to fill those vacancies. Currently, our employee costs, if we take the costs that we pay directly to employees, plus the professional services, including the consultants, then the employee costs amounts to close to 50%. In terms of National Treasury guidelines, it's supposed to be about 34%.
In conversation with the city mayor, the city of Tshwane, Randall Williams, and looking at the state of the city tonight in, of course, what we have been covering with a number of metros here in Gauteng, but also we'll be looking elsewhere as well, just to get a sense of what's happening in our local government. So, Mayor, let's go back then once again to what the situation is as far as the Auditor General report is concerned. The recouping of 3.2 billion rands from individuals who are awarded tenders irregularly, including the smart prepaid meter contracts. I mean, that is one of the issues that were flagged in the 2018-2019 report, to say the city has not addressed that, talking to issues of accountability and consequence management. What is the city doing as far as holding those who are involved in those contracts accountable?
Okay, what happened? The PAYO was signed under the previous, the PAYO meter contract was signed under the previous administration before 2016. AfriForum went to court to block certain payments. There were tranches of payments were being made. We joined that contract, and eventually we were successful in having the contract declared unlawful. That is being investigated to find out whether there are individuals in the city that assisted these companies to get these this unlawful payments. Essentially, what happened with the PAYO meters, these were supposed to be prepaid meters installed, but the contract was drafted in such a manner that by installing the prepaid meters, the company PAYO was entitled to a certain commission, about 18% or 19% a commission on the revenue that's collected via these prepaid meters. But the reason why the contract was first entered into was to install prepaid meters with residents that have been defaulting on their accounts, so that we can, it's then called what they call a revenue enhancing project. But it was not that. What PAYO actually did, they went to the biggest paying Tshwane customers, our industrial customers, our commercial customers, who never defaulted on their accounts. That is where they installed the meters. So they then claimed 19% commission from those customers that were in any event paying us. So clearly they did not do this on their own. So there's still a forensic investigation underway, and we need to see who needs to be held accountable.
How far is that investigation? Seems to have been going on for a while now. In fact,
yes,
number of years.
These are investigations that we can't deal with internally. We don't have the capacity to do that. We don't have forensic accountants. So these are investigations that are outsourced to private companies.
Yeah. I mean, but that creates this gap of no consequence management into what you're saying literally is unauthorized and irregular maladministration of contracts, so to speak. And that then continues on, and the Auditor General saying, well, the city is not demonstrating its ability to be able to hold those who are not performing to account.
Well, this is not about people not performing. This was about a daylight robbery. This is about criminal acts.
Even worse, those who are robbing the city to account.
Yes, yes, but for criminal acts, you need proof beyond reasonable doubt that people are guilty. So then that's called for proper investigation. This is just not claiming money that were misspent.
Okay, then let's look at another situation then, Mayor. What steps have been taken following the forensic investigation into the Glad Africa matter? Since inception, it was said that 495 million rands was spent between 2017 and 2019. There's an investigation that was done and completed, and recommendations given to the city.
Right. First of all, the investigations that we did, there was a phase 1 investigation that came out with findings that the processes followed were flawed. That report we wanted to table in council. However, the city manager at the time, Masola, then went to the Labour Court to get an interdict to prevent us from tabling that particular report in council. Right? And then the previous mayor before me, unfortunately, came to an agreement with the city manager for a settlement agreement with him so that he could leave his post. So the second phase, where we needed to follow the invoices, unfortunately, that was never commissioned. However, we got an APC, that is an auditing committee that reports to council, who also did a forensic report, which has been finalized now at the end of last year. So we now need to follow processes so that we can take this further. Unfortunately, I haven't had the luxury of time.
Yeah.
The administrators, nothing happened under them, so now we've got to restart all these investigations and follow all the processes.
So you are in essence then saying that you are the one who's supposed to institute that investigation?
No, the APC has been done. I've commissioned that the phase 2 should be done. That has to be outsourced. It's going to cost us 5 million rands. We've got a shortage of funds. So we have to think carefully which investigations we want to pursue. Because it costs money. It costs the residents money to pursue these investigations.
So exactly, in terms of the competing requirements or needs in the city, you're saying that investigation has not been prioritized because of that 5 million rands that you do not have?
We don't have it currently, but in the new budget, we will be prioritizing it.
All right. Let's then move on, Mayor, to the other questions that are being raised here. The high water and electricity losses in the city. What is being done around that?
Well, I wish I had a magic wand that in 5 months I could just wave my wand and we have a solution. The infrastructure of the city is more than 60 years old. Over the last 60 years, way before 94, both infrastructure for electricity, water have been poorly maintained. And now today we're paying the price for it. The electricity losses amounts to about 18%, but there's both technical and non-technical losses. The technical losses is the poor maintenance of infrastructure. The non-technical losses is, like for example, all these illegal connections. In the city, we've got more than 80,000 illegal connections. Now, 2 weeks ago, we were finally able to start with a project with SAPS to start disconnecting, start cutting these illegal connections. Because these illegal connections, we can't just send out the officials, the city employees. The city employees will get hurt. So they need the protection of SAPS. SAPS told us during the COVID-19 lockdown that they're not able to send out anyone. So finally, 2 weeks ago, they came to the party. So we started going out. What we've done is we scheduled 2 to 4 operations per week where we're going out and we are removing these illegal connections. As far as the water losses are concerned, what I saw is the officials reporting to me that the water losses currently are standing at about 34%. So I said, no, we can't look at it in that manner, where you look at it in a percentage manner. That tells you nothing. What you need to look at the water losses that are reported on your financial statements. And in the last financial year, the water losses, 2019 to 2020, amounted to 1 billion rands. So we buy the bulk water from Rand Water, Magali's Water, and then we allow, through water losses, 1 billion rands worth of water to flush down the drains, down the wastewater systems. So that is where we stand. So I've asked that we now put in place a capital project to look at these water losses, because the water losses stems lastly from the type of infrastructure that we have in place. We've got asbestos pipes in the system that's been there for more than 60 years in large part of Tshwane. And yet we have been championing for decades now a densification system. So where you used to have one house on 2,000 square meters, now you've got 20 to 30 units on 2,000 square meters. With the result, for the water to reach all 20 to 30 units, you need to increase the water pressure. So what happens now when you increase the water pressure? The asbestos pipes rupture. And the way the asbestos pipes rupture, it does not rupture vertically, it ruptures horizontally. So you maintain one area, and then it runs along. Next week, you have to fix a further point. So what I said, we need a capital project. We need to go to long-term loan market. We need to borrow the money and start replacing these asbestos pipes.
So the solution there, Mayor, is that you're going to raise money in the capital market?
That's correct. We need to replace the infrastructure.
Conversation with the Mayor of the city of Tshwane, Randall Williams. Some of your WhatsApp messages coming through as well tonight. We'll get to them in just a moment, but we want to get to what is coming out from the South African Human Rights Commission as far as the expenditure of the grants is concerned. Mayor, so the research then was done by the South African Human Rights Commission on the spent in upgrading informal settlements. It says here in Tshwane, however, that you have not performed well, particularly when you look at your USDG and UISP projects. The failure of the city to meet the requirements around the USDG and specifically around the UISP component is indicative of poor planning, poor budgeting, and poor reporting. Quite scathing.
Well, you know, the budget, as I was said, started from 1st of July. So the budget was approved on the 30th of June last year. So we are stuck with that budget. So it's my responsibility to implement a budget that was approved on the 30th of June last year. And that budget can't be changed. You can make adjustments, but you can't change the projects. So the budget is then valid up till the 30th of June of this year. So what I have found since we've come back, for this year, 34 projects were listed where we were formalizing informal settlements. By December, 7 were completed. And clearly, we're not going to do 34. Well, we found that one of the main reasons that the project has lagged is because in many areas we've got problems with business forums where there are local businessmen that block projects because they want the projects to be awarded to them. They want certain percentages of the projects without having to do anything. So that has been a major concern. Yeah. So the contractors can't go to a site and then do what they need to do. They are then violently blocked by business forums. But that is not only unique to the city of Tshwane, it's happening all over the country. And it has been reported to the president. But be that as it may, we've now come up with a new strategy as far as formalization is concerned, because I believe that is what we need to do. Although the provision of housing is not a competency of the local government, it's only a competency of national and provincial government. Yeah. It is our duty to assist provincial and local, provincial and national government to provide a safe housing for the various communities that cannot afford it. So we are doing our best to provide the infrastructure, put all the services in place so that communities themselves can then build their structures on top. Now, we've got an additional problem. Yes, we've got many informal settlements, but many of the informal settlements in Tshwane are actually inhabited by illegal immigrants, which unfortunately, as you know, in terms of legislation, we cannot make a provision for foreign nationals who have not come to South Africa lawfully. So that is a huge challenge for us. The fact that we are limited by legislation to only make provision for, as far as the formalization is concerned, for South African nationals. And we need to form a partnership with Home Affairs so that we can come up with a solution. So that's a major part of the challenge as well.
Yeah. But the issue that's raised, though, Mayor, by the South African Human Rights Commission is a completely different one, because it says 320 million rands. That's the amount that has been made available. Of course, it's a grant. It's not yet with you, but it is a grant that has been made available, and it required you to plan to budget for it, and then to implement. And the report is saying on all those accounts, you are found lacking.
Well, I don't know when this report was commissioned, when this report was done. To have that report would have taken some time. So I don't know if they refer to this financial year or to the previous financial year.
2020, 2021 is what they are looking at.
Okay. Well, I'm not aware of any money, because if you do not spend correctly and you don't provide adequate reasons about a catch-up plan, I'm not aware of any money being returned to either a provincial or national government. I'm not aware of that.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it goes to the other pressure point in the city, which was also raised in Parliament, as far as the service levels in township areas are concerned and infrastructure backlog. The members of Parliament also raising the issue that the city of Tshwane is seemingly spending less when you look at townships and informal settlements, and this, I suppose, also speaking to that there's a lack of commitment in ensuring that the right and the adequate amount of budget is spent to upgrade the informal settlement.
Well, let me put it this way. The system that I put in place does not allow for that. I told you my priority is the delivery of basic services, street lights, potholes, cutting grass. So what I've done is I've got a system where the regional executive directors, there are 7 regions in Tshwane, have to draw up schedules for all the 107 wards. And they then have to list what are they going to do in each ward. And each of the ward councillors have to verify what is going to be done in the wards. And you must remember, in city of Tshwane, the vast majority of the wards are ANC wards, not DA wards. I think the DA's got about 37 wards. The ANC's got about 69 wards. So most of the wards are ANC wards. So we're working with ANC councillors. Then the work needs to be performed in terms of the schedules, which all the ward councillors receive. And the ward councillors then have to verify whether the work has actually been done. So since December, we've cut over 30 million square meters of grass. Since January, we have repaired over 8,000 potholes. Since January as well, we have repaired over 70,000 street lights. So we work on a ward basis, and we bring in all the ward councillors, doesn't matter from which party you are. So I can't believe this thing that money is being spent differently, because definitely, if that had to happen, the ANC ward councillors would have complained. I haven't heard of any complaints from them.
All right. Then let's talk about how you're prioritizing then, Mayor, the lack of priority given to the elderly and the disabled when it comes to the allocation of housing. This is a charge and a question that was raised in Parliament as well. I think it's the community of Nelmapius that are complaining here about a 5% quota that the city has in place as far as the elderly and the disabled are concerned.
Look, when we build the top structures, we do so on behalf of the provincial government. And the provincial government are involved when title deeds are issued. So we don't do these things on our own. We work hand in hand with the Gauteng provincial government, because the grant money comes from them. It is not money from the city. Because like I said, the competency for building houses, yes, we can provide the land, but building the top structures is a responsibility of the provincial government. So when we do it in partnership with them. So there's no such thing that the city has a secret formula or a formula that does not comply with national housing policy.
That list, though, you are responsible for, are you not?
Yes, there's a waiting list.
Yeah.
But
how does it work?
Well, the waiting lists work on people who have first registered, because, look, you don't put someone, give priority to someone that's been on the list for a month and the other person has been on the list for 20 years. So the way it comes is first come, first serve. That's the way it should work. But also, obviously, you have to look at the vulnerable. I don't know what are the formulas that are applied, what has been agreed to with the provincial government, but that is what we do. We have a waiting list, and we work according to the waiting list.
Right. So, I mean, what is lacking here is whether or not you are prioritizing that particular group, or you are not, I suppose, making a special dispensation for them as far as the housing allocation is concerned.
Well, what I'm aware of, there is a waiting list, and we work according to a waiting list. And some people have been on the waiting list for up to 30 years.
All right. Talking of lists then, the issue of the distribution of solar geysers was another one that was raised in Parliament. Why some have received and some have not received?
Look, currently I'm not aware of any solar geyser project that's being run by the municipality. I'm not aware of that. So that is news to me. I don't have a solar geysing project running currently. So if it has been done in the past, unfortunately, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah. Why don't you have a solar geyser project, Mayor?
Well, it's not the responsibility of a local government to provide solar geysers. I don't know how that becomes the responsibility of a local government.
Yeah. So you've abandoned that project because there seems to be an understanding that such a project does exist.
Well, I would like to see how a local government is responsible for providing solar geysers to the communities.
Well, I mean, municipalities, for example, that I would have direct knowledge of. Johannesburg City has provided solar geysers, for example, for a community in Alexandra as part of a moving into greener energy, but also it's a cost-saving measure, I suppose. We know the challenges that we are having around electricity and how geysers, for example, would consume that electricity.
Well, then that was a specific project that the city of Joburg has started. Because we do have green projects in the city, and obviously that is one of the green projects that they've chosen.
All right. Then let's move on then to the other questions that are being raised here. The issue of a mobile police station, and that has not been addressed, and just generally the number of officers that you have allocated to fight crime in the city.
Look, we've got a complement about 4,000 metro policemen, and we try and cover the whole city. But you must remember, the responsibility of the metro police is not crime fighting. The responsibility of the metro police is to enforce bylaws. That is their responsibility. The crime fighting responsibility is that of SAPS. But what we do now, we do assist SAPS with crime prevention. That is our responsibility. But we've even gone beyond that because the Metro City Police operate because SAPS allow them to operate in certain spheres. They're not a sort of force that have original powers. For example, we are allowed to have a drugs unit where we combat drug abuse in the city. So we've got a small drug unit. But it is not the function of Metro Police to fight crime. But their function is enforcement of municipal bylaws. That is their main function.
And have you been able to successfully enforce municipal bylaws, particularly around COVID-19 regulations?
Well, COVID-19, it's not municipal bylaws. It's under the Disaster Management Act, so it's regulations that's issued by national government. Yes, we assist SAPS. When it comes, we don't have arresting powers to do that, to arrest people if they don't abide. because municipal bylaws is, for example, traffic infringement, noisy parties, building control regulations. Those are the type of municipal bylaws that you look at. But COVID-19 regulations are national regulations that's issued by the National Minister of Culture.
All right, the City of Tshwane Mayor Randall Williams with that. We're going to questions in just a moment. With us is the Mayor of the City of Tshwane, Randall Williams. Mayor, had a conversation, it was earlier last week, with the MEC for Cocked Up following the release of this report by the South African Human Rights Commission. He had said that he will have meetings with the various mayors, metro mayors, particularly in the province. What's your relationship like with the MEC at the moment?
Well, we've got a very, very good relationship. As you've seen, when we came into office, just before we came into office, in fact, a few days before that, MEC Mahile then appointed one of the administrators as the acting city manager, and we're working very well together. So I think we've got a very good working relationship.
And what about the municipal workers at the moment? What is that relationship like? The former mayor, your predecessor, had cut this deal with the municipal workers as far as an increase is concerned. It seems you are reneging on that particular agreement.
Well, we certainly have not reneged on the agreement. We've implemented what is known as the benchmarking agreement. It costs us a lot of money, which we did not budget for, but we felt we were obligated to abide by the agreement.
So you are going ahead with that particular agreement?
Well, we've already gone ahead. Payment has already taken place.
Right. And so your relationship with the municipal workers has been restored. It's in order. There are no rifts there.
Well, look, there will always be disagreements. I mean, you name one government department where there are a total agreement between the employer and the unions at all time. But what we do is we meet regularly and we speak regularly. For example, I mean, like every second week we've had engagements. My chief of staff have regular engagements with the unions. So we need to speak to each other regularly so that we are always aware of what's happening in the city.
Yeah. I'm asking because there are reports of an aggrieved Tshwane Metro cops disrupting a ceremony which you were a part of. I mean, what is there truth in that reporting, and what happened at that event?
Yes, unfortunately, the journalists had to write something, and yeah, what basically happened? There was an unveiling of two trucks, two heavy-duty trucks. When I got to the Metro Police headquarters, I was asked to use a different entrance, and I was chauffeured to a boardroom. And when I got to the boardroom, I was informed by the Metro Police chief that there were Metro Police constables that are very, very unhappy, and they are all demanding that they all should be promoted to sergeant. So I said, well, they need to make out their case. They need to engage with HR, and if they think they've got a legal case for all of them to be promoted to sergeant, which would be at an enormous cost to the city, then they need to engage with the human resources. And then I then left. So I never got to see the employees. There was no disruption. But ultimately, the journalist has to earn his meal. So he had to write the story.
So, I mean, they are literally demonstrating, calling for Joshua Nkomo, who is the Lieutenant General Chief Lieutenant General, to be dismissed. Is that a conversation that they've raised with you? And is the Chief Lieutenant General's position still secured?
Look, she's got a contract. She signed a 5-year contract. The officers, like I said, I never engaged with them on that day. They haven't raised anything with me. That is merely what I was informed, that they wanted all to be promoted to the rank of sergeant. The unions have raised issues of dissatisfaction by some of the members. There has been no strikes against the police chief, but yes, the unions have raised the issue.
All right. Mayor, what is your broad plan then to deal with, for example, the pressure points of the level of homelessness and destitution in the city?
Look, that is a challenge for us. Like I said, well, not what I say, what is clear, which even the Minister of Finance have said, that all local governments, all municipalities are hard-pressed for income. People have lost their jobs. We've got far lower levels of revenue collection. We need to prioritize certain issues, the provision of basic services, as I said. We will try our best to assist the homeless, but it's not only a local government issue. This is an issue that should be addressed by the social development departments that exist in national government, that exist in provincial government. So we need to come together, to work together to come up with a plan. But it's not for the local government to do it alone, in isolation. It's impossible. We simply don't have the money.
All right, let's take some of the questions then coming through tonight on social media. We'll start with Anonymous with a question for the mayor. Why is the mayor and the city manager not willing to implement workers' awards that are won at the bargaining council? The issue of unfairly dismissed revenue agents. Mayor, you want to deal with that one?
I'm not aware of any award that has been given that we haven't implemented. I'm not aware of that.
All right. Mandla saying, Mayor, some people I know have been on the RDP list for over 20 years and still haven't been given a house. What are you doing about the issue of RDPs?
Well, again, that's why I mentioned earlier. When top structures are built, we do it on behalf of provincial government. And what happened, the waiting list that I spoke about is a waiting list that sits with the provincial government. And we are then given the list by the provincial government who should receive title deeds. Sometimes the title deeds are handed over by the mayor according to the lists of province. Sometimes it's done by the MEC. But we're not in charge. Housing is a competency of provincial and national government. So we do it on behalf of the provincial government.
Mayor, what is currently your backlog as housing? I mean, the last number was sitting at 220,000. Has that remained there?
Look, there's a huge backlog. We are completing a number of projects by the middle of this year that will provide a few thousand units. There's the Townlands project in the CBD, and there's another project that we bring into fruition by the middle of this year. But in the city and in the whole country, there's a massive backlog.
All right, let's take more questions then. My question is, what is the city, or what plan has the city got in place to assist students who are struggling to pay their monthly bills during this tough time?
Look, it's not only the students. There are a lot of people. What we do is we look at account holders, and what we've introduced for a long time already, but we've expanded on it again. We've got what is known as an indigent register, where you, if you earn less than 2 old age pensions, which I think is about 2,400, 2,800 rands now. If you earn less than that, and there are other requirements, you can register on our indigent register, and you're entitled to a certain quota of free electricity and free water. So that is our contribution.
All right, and a final one from Walter saying, what is your strategy, Mayor, that is in place currently relating to illegal connections around the Tshwane municipality, irrespective of the COVID-19 issue?
Well, that's what I answered earlier. There are over 80,000 illegal connections. We tried during the COVID period to send officials to disconnect these illegal connections, but the communities are very hostile, And because we feared for the safety of our employees, we had to wait for SAPS to come to the party and to protect our employees when they go on such excursions to cut the illegal connections. Now, finally, 2 weeks ago, the SAPS then joined these excursions, and we started removing these illegal connections. So we will be doing 2 to 4 of these per week to address this issue.
Finally, Mayor, I mean, broadly speaking, because of the politics that are going on in the city of Tshwane, the politics that are going on inside the individual parties, it is a coalition government. There has been a lot of challenges in recent times, collapse of governance and administrative processes. What does your administration, however short it will be for this particular period, promise?
Look, what happened, both in Joburg and also in Tshwane, you've got two minority governments, despite the fact that as the DA, we've got coalition partners. We are less than 50%. In fact, in council, we only have a 45% vote. So we have been working, compromising with both the ANC and EFF for the last 5 months. If parties were not able to work together, we would have experienced the same problems that we experienced before we were placed under administration. So I think the parties have learned to work together for the benefit of the residents of the city.
Mayor, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us. That's the mayor of the city of Tshwane, Randall Williams, with us looking at the state of the city. The news.